Good morning and welcome. I am Dr. Kimberly Citron, joining you from Connecticut Behavioral Health to discuss anxiety reduction techniques amid the COVID-19 pandemic. Today we'll be using the acronym VIRAL, ironically, to discuss ways in which you can reduce anxiety during this time. The V in VIRAL refers to validate and ways in which you can validate your own and one another's emotions. The I refers to intellectualizing, and we want to do that in a healthy way. The R in viral refers to both relaxation and recreation, which are so important for us to maintain during this time. The A refers to both affiliation and approximation, and we'll be discussing more about each of those shortly. And the L in viral refers to learning skills for coping. I just want to say that I know that this is an extremely difficult time for many of us, and I think that everyone is doing a fabulous job of helping one another and trying to maintain their own physical and emotional safety. And this presentation is intended to help you reduce your own feelings of anxiety while doing so. Validation is extremely important for us during this time. This is an unprecedented, extremely difficult time in which we have concerns for our physical health, our emotional well-being, the well-being of those around us. And so it's important that we validate all of the emotions that we are experiencing. Currently, many of us are confined to our homes, and those who are not are out in the community exposed to this virus. People are adjusting to working from home during a pandemic, which we should distinguish from our typical notions of working from home, which I think previously we all thought of as a luxury and a privilege at times. And we want to distinguish this from our previous notions of working from home, because by equating it with the same thing, we may invalidate our feelings regarding how difficult it can be and what some of the challenges might be. Many of us are also homeschooling our own children during a pandemic, which is also not the typical voluntary manner in which people refer to homeschooling, as it's more often a choice that is made rather than something that we as a whole society have to suddenly implement under extreme conditions and pressure. So again, we want to distinguish between homeschooling and homeschooling during a pandemic, because we don't want to belittle our own feelings about how challenging that might be. At this time, people are isolated from their family, their friends, and their coworkers, and this too can be very, very difficult. By nature, human beings strive for connection with others, so this time of isolation can be extremely difficult for some people to tolerate. And it's okay to validate that this does not feel okay to us. While I love all of the stories I'm seeing on social media and the news about how people are supporting each other, and some people are being very productive during this time, I think it's very important that we also share our own struggles, just to normalize how difficult this can be for many people. So as much as I think it's wonderful when people are able to clear out a closet or rearrange furniture or do all of their yard work in one weekend, I think it's important to acknowledge that not all people are able to do that during this time, and it can be extremely difficult to find motivation and energy to do these things when we are simultaneously processing the fact that we are going through and experiencing a global pandemic. So when we minimize, belittle, or invalidate our own feelings, it can lead to greater feelings of depression, anxiety, and inadequacy. So it's important to acknowledge your own challenging emotions, feel them, lean on others for support, and learn coping strategies for those very powerful emotions. Intellectualization is another means of reducing our anxiety during this time. Like many coping strategies, intellectualization can be both a coping strategy as well as a cognitive distortion when misused. So we just want to be careful about that. And I want to be clear that intellectualizing in the sense of using our logical brain can often be helpful. However, intellectualizing to an extreme so as to avoid the experience of your own emotions can become maladaptive. So we just want to make sure that we're intellectualizing in a healthy way. It's important that we intellectualize on some level because it helps us to be logical and avoid emotionally driven decision making, which can lead to panic. By thinking with our logical or rational brain, we obtain the necessary amount of reliable, valid information to make well-informed decisions. So by using our logical brain, we feel our anxiety about this virus, we acknowledge it, we want to think to ourselves, this anxiety is functional. What does it mean? And what it means is that we need to take certain precautions right now to keep ourselves and our families safe. And so again, that anxiety is functional so long as we know how to cope with it. And in the case of coping with it through using our rational brains and intellectualizing, we want to seek out a limited number of reliable sources of information so that we have accurate and valid information to keep ourselves safe. So that we have an awareness of the importance of hand washing and social distancing and limiting our trips out to crowded places such as grocery stores and parks and things of that nature during this time. We want to limit those sources of information to those that are deemed accurate, like the Center for Disease Control, for instance. So we definitely want to seek out information that can keep us safe and increase our awareness of how to maintain safety during this time. However, we do not want to obsess about information that's presented in the media. We do not want to obsess about statistics or figures presented in the media more so than is necessary to make those reasonable and well-informed decisions. We definitely want to limit our intake of news and media. So you do not want the news channels running in your home or if you're in your car all the time. I would say to have a couple of times a day where you check in with your media sources and for a finite period of time. So perhaps watching the evening news for half an hour or watching a trusted news station in the morning for 30 minutes or reading the news for a period of 15 to 30 minutes in the morning and the evening, but really not consuming that information all day long. We also want to be sure that we're limiting passive media exposure for our children. So again, you just don't want the kids in the room when we're listening to things that could be upsetting to them, such as statistics regarding the proliferation of COVID-19 prevalence rates or the death toll or rate of hospitalization. The one piece of information that I would be sure to emphasize to both yourselves and your children is the number of people who are successfully recovering from this virus. So with that, we will take a brief break before we return to review relaxation and recreation techniques for reducing anxiety during this time. Welcome back. Now we will continue to discuss ways to reduce anxiety amid the COVID-19 pandemic. We had discussed the V and I in the acronym VIRAL, so we already know that it's important to validate our own feelings as well as the emotions of others and that we want to intellectualize about this virus, but in a healthy way. Now we'll be discussing the importance of relaxation and recreation. It's very important that we take out time specifically for both relaxation and recreation. Relaxation techniques can include things like mindfulness, meditation, yoga, listening to relaxing music, or taking a walk. Recreation can take the form of more rigorous physical activity, such as having a catch or playing basketball with healthy family members only, going hiking on a trail that's not heavily populated, running, or riding a bicycle. Recreation can also include activities such as board games, puzzles, reading, watching a movie, scrapbooking, or baking or cooking. It's imperative that we not go from working at home during a pandemic to perhaps homeschooling our children during a pandemic to consuming news about the pandemic. It's important that we create space for relaxation and recreation in our lives in order to maintain a sense of normalcy during this time, in order to get the fresh air and sunshine that our bodies need, in order to have that downtime and relaxation time to recuperate from the stress that we're all enduring, and really to take a proactive approach to maintaining our mental health during this time. It's essential to our well-being that we integrate activities for recreation and relaxation for ourselves as well as for our children. I think as parents, we tend to try to ensure that our children have these opportunities. And let's face it, if we don't ensure that, they will find ways to demand their recreational time, and they will show us that they need time for relaxation. But as adults, we often neglect our own well-being or mental health needs. So it's very important that the adults also take time for relaxation and recreation. In a two-parent household, a good way to do that is using sort of a relay race process whereby you cover one another so that there are opportunities for relaxation and recreation, and that you're careful to carve out time for each of you to have that, even if it's for a short period of time, to take a shower or a relaxing bath, or to go for that jog or bicycle ride, or even just to sit outside on your front steps or in your yard and enjoy the fresh air and feel the sunshine on your face, or even for those of you who are more adventurous, maybe play outside in the rain. In a single parent household, I know that that can be more challenging. And one way to accomplish that might be to ask a grandparent or an aunt or an uncle to have a video conference with the child, so that with your child, so that you may be able to take space or step away. Again, outside on the porch or inside with a cup of tea, or taking that relaxing shower or bath, or just stepping away for 15 minutes to read a book or have some time to yourselves. Also, for those of you with younger children, I know during any time, let alone now, nap time is often coveted time in which we hope to accomplish things like chores or returning phone calls. And now that many of us are working from home, nap time is coveted time to return work emails or complete chores that haven't been completed at home. But it's so important to also take whatever opportunity you can for relaxation and recreation. So if your children are napping, or if they happen to sleep later than you in the morning or go to bed earlier than you in the evening, try to utilize some of that time for your own self-care and relaxation and recreation. The A in viral refers to affiliation. And so, by nature, human beings require affiliation and connection with other human beings, as well as perhaps with our furry friends, chirping friends, and squirming friends, like our bearded dragons and leopard geckos. It's important that we maintain a sense of social connection with other human beings during this time of social distancing. Connections with family are important, as well as connections with folks outside of your family. And I've seen people do this in very creative ways. So people are using Zoom meetings to celebrate holidays or milestone birthdays or birthdays. People are driving by children's houses on birthdays with a big parade. Um, People are talking on the phone. Texting is good, but I'd like to see something that involves, real time, hopefully face to face communication, but if not, talking on the phone. People are talking to their neighbors while staying in their own yards, but just stepping outside during the day and maintaining that sense of connection is important. In families, it's important for everyone to connect with one another. So it's easy for us to kind of feel like, well, now we're quarantined at home and we're all spending so much time together. More time together is hardly what we need. But in reality, we need to be careful about how we're spending that time. So, yes, we're all at home together, and some of that time is spent working from home during a pandemic, as we said, teaching our children from home during a pandemic. For those of you that are teachers or support staff in school, you're also possibly teaching other students while teaching your own students while working from home during a pandemic. Um, so it's important that we take time that's not designated towards work or schooling to have human connection for the sake of the connection, just simply to connect with someone else about how you're doing, how they're doing, how your families are doing, and how you're coping during this time. Some time to laugh together or cry together if that's what's needed in the moment. But just time to make that connection. Partners need time to connect with one another. Those who do not have children, again, make sure that you're intentionally taking out time to connect that does not involve work or discussing finances or designation of household duties or processing the news media. Make sure that you're taking time out to play a game together or take a walk together, share a meal together in the absence of any screens or external stimulation. For those of you who have children, try to find time, again, not just time to relax and enjoy some recreation with each other, with the children, or by yourselves, but as a couple as well. Date nights, I imagine, have all but ceased to exist during this time. I know there are some restaurants who do takeout who are promoting a date night at home. Again, this can be done on any budget, so you don't need to order out in order to do that. It's really just a mindset. It's really just saying we're going to carve out an hour to have a date at home this evening and talk with one another, maybe share a meal or a snack or a glass of wine, maybe play a card game together or some other game, or after we've had some time talking, watching a funny movie or a romantic movie or listening to music together or dancing, something of that nature. In families with multiple siblings, I would recommend breaking up into pairs or groups for certain activities and switching who people are paired with from time to time. So each parent should spend some time individually with each child, regardless of family size. And again, you should kind of pair up siblings for different activities. And this does not have to be lengthy periods of time. but just making sure that everyone's not kind of on overload with everybody else. And I would take a strengths-based approach to this. And, you know, the people who enjoy playing cards should have a card game together. And the more athletic folks in the family can go outside and have a catch with one another or kick a ball around. Those who like to complete puzzles might enjoy a scavenger hunt or completing a jigsaw puzzle together. And those who enjoy music might enjoy a dance party. So I would try to split up at times and vary who everyone is spending time with. I would try to make sure that you're also connecting with extended family members, such as grandparents, aunts, uncles, and cousins. And be sure to connect with your friends and coworkers as well, because these relationships are important sources of outside support. And it certainly helps to normalize everyone's challenges and successes when we share them with one another. And it really does help to touch base with the people who you would normally be touching base with throughout your week. So scheduling Zoom meetings with your coworkers, even if it's not necessary to achieve your task related to work, but just to check in with one another as you would normally do. And then of course with your friends as well. So if you're having a birthday, or if you would normally be going out with your girlfriends or guy friends on a Friday night, I would encourage you to schedule a Zoom meeting and still affiliate with the same people who you would have been affiliating with had we not been social distancing. Again, be sure to share your challenges as well as your successes, because this just normalizes the experience for everyone. And we want to be sure that we're not shaming or making folks who are not coping so well feel inadequate during this time. So with that, we will take a break before we move on to discussing the importance of approximation or continuing some of the same activities that you were participating in prior to the COVID-19 pandemic.